Welcome to the weekly recap, where I sit down and unpack all the goings on where British wildlife is concerned. In today's episode, we look at the hunt sabs that made history by holding a historic meeting in Parliament, the news that England's worst fox hunt removed all mention of foxes from its founding document, and the inspiring story of a fox that underwent the world's first brain surgery. First up then, it's the story that on the 9th of January, a historic moment was made in the House of Commons, after hunt saboteurs were invited into Parliament to meet with MPs for the first time in over 60 years. This landmark meeting, arranged by Poole MP Neil Duncan Jordan, brought together activists from North London hunt sabs and North Dorset hunt sabs, as well as a cross-party group of MPs to discuss the urgent need for stronger fox hunting laws. The saboteurs shared first-hand accounts of illegal hunting and presented compelling evidence that so-called trail hunting is nothing more than a cover for continued illegal fox hunting. The Hunt Saboteurs Association, or HSA, has been fighting for wildlife protection since its formation in 1963. Originally, of course, their goal was to disrupt hunts by confusing hounds, back when hunting was still legal. But even after the Hunting Act of 2004 banned fox hunting, their work didn't stop. 2 decades on, activists are still intervening to prevent illegal hunts from killing wildlife, and of course their continued presence proves that the law is not being properly enforced and desperately needs reform. A spokesperson for North London Hunt Saboteurs summed up the situation, saying it's now down to the government to end hunting for good, with comprehensive and enforceable legislation. Every week they delay, innocent animals are suffering and dying. Of course, I couldn't agree more. It's great to see a meeting like this taking place, and that the Labour government are seemingly taking on board the concerns of those on the ground putting themselves in danger to protect wildlife. Now it's up to the government to step up, fulfil their promises, and finally put an end to the hunting of wildlife for good. Next up is a story about the Blackmore and Sparkford Vale hunt, a hunt we've talked about lots recently, who have long been infamous as one of Britain's most blatant fox hunts. According to our most recent annual hunting report, this hunt alone accounted for nearly 13% of reported chases and kills in the 23-24 hunting season. But in a curious twist, the BSV recently made a significant change. It has scrubbed all mentions of foxes from one of its founding documents. The BSV, like other hunts, operates as a business entity and created a memorandum of association, a kind of charter, when it was incorporated back in 2004. At the time, the memorandum openly acknowledged the ban on fox hunting and committed to campaigning for what they said was the lawful reintroduction of hunting with hounds. Foxes also featured prominently in the text, and clauses even referred to maintaining a controlled and balanced fox population. However, at an extraordinary general meeting in September 2024, the BSV unanimously agreed to alter this document. Words like fox and fox hunting were removed entirely, replaced with vague references to hunting within the law. Clauses that referenced trail hunting, mock hunting, and even the conservation of foxes were deleted entirely. So why the sudden changes? Well, we can only speculate, of course, but it's hard not to see this as a reaction to the growing pressure on the hunting industry. Over the years, saboteurs and wildlife protection groups have continually exposed trail hunting as nothing more than a cover for illegal fox hunting. In response, the Labour government has pledged to ban trail hunting altogether, calling it a smokescreen to cruelly kill foxes and hares. If even the BSV, arguably the poster child for traditional fox hunting, feels the need to erase its association with foxes, it's clearly a sign of just how much the tide is turning. The question now is whether the government will follow through on its commitment to end this cruel practice once and for all. And whilst we're on the topic of foxes, our last story is something a colleague sent to me the other day that really took me by surprise. This was the news that a rescued fox cub has made history by undergoing a a world-first brain surgery. The 6-week-old cub, named Hazel by her rescuers, was found lying beside her deceased mother on the side of a road in Maidstone. Her mother sadly had been hit by a car, leaving Hazel alone and in need of urgent care. Volunteers at Kent Wildlife Rescue Service noticed that Hazel had an unusually enlarged forehead. Over time, it became clear she was suffering from hydrocephalus, a condition causing fluid to build up around the brain. This not only led to seizures, but also affected her eyesight and behaviour. Hazel was referred to the expert team at North Downs Specialist Referrals in Surrey, where veterinary neurologist specialist Dr. Veronica Mortera took on the case. Despite the lack of precedent for such a procedure in foxes, Dr. Mortera performed a pioneering operation, fitting Hazel with a very clever device that redirects fluid from the brain to the abdomen, relieving pressure and giving Hazel a new lease of life. After a week in intensive care, Hazel returned to the rescue centre and is thriving. She hasn't experienced any seizures since the surgery, and her quality of life has vastly improved. I love stories like this because I am such a firm believer that every life, no matter how small, is worth saving. Every living being ultimately just wants a chance to thrive, and so it's lovely to see an operation of this kind was successfully carried out. That's all for this week. I'm going to do a deep dive on the whole story regarding Warwickshire Police and their secret deal with the Warwickshire Hunt next week, because I think it needs its own video. And if you haven't already seen it, our reaction to the government's response to our petition calling for an end to the badger cull also went up a few days ago, so please do check that out if you haven't already. As always, I will leave all links down below for the stories and groups mentioned in this video.